All right, today we are going way, way back in time. We're on a journey to figure out the very origins of organized human conflict. We're going to try and pinpoint that exact moment when a simple, brutal fight turned into something much, much bigger, something we now call war. And this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? It's a question that has haunted us forever. Is fighting just baked into our DNA? Is it something that came along with civilization? Or, does it come from somewhere deeper, somewhere more primal? Let's dig in and find out. So, here's our game plan. We're going to start with those first personal clashes. Then we'll get into the desperate struggle for survival that was really driving everything. We'll look at how everyday tools became deadly weapons. And finally, we'll see how all that chaos evolved into organized tribal warfare, complete with its own clever and brutal strategies. Okay, let's set the scene. Our journey starts long before any written history. We're in a world with no countries, no armies, not even any kings. This is a time when humanity was really just getting started. You have to imagine these small, scattered groups of early humans. When conflict happened, it wasn't some declared war between nations. No, it was probably just chaotic, terrifying, and incredibly personal. A sudden skirmish between a couple of people, or maybe two small families. It would have been over in minutes, but the consequences? Absolutely deadly. So what was it all for? What drove these first violent encounters? Well, it wasn't about politics or beliefs. The why was tied to the most basic, powerful drive we all have, just plain survival. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? Forget honor, forget building an empire. The very first fights were born out of pure desperation. The prize wasn't some golden throne, it was just being able to live another day and making sure your family did too. And what did that survival depend on? Well, it was about controlling the things that mattered. That bend in the river with fresh water, the valley that was full of game, that one cave that offered real shelter, or a patch of land where things would actually grow. These weren't nice-to-haves. They were literally the difference between life and death. And this is where a huge shift happens. The fight stops being just about me. It starts to become about us. See, it's one thing to defend yourself. It's a whole other thing to fight to secure a hunting ground that's going to feed your entire tribe through a long winter. That collective need, that's the little seed that organized warfare grows from. So, with a very powerful reason to fight, our ancestors needed the tools to get the job done. And this is where human ingenuity took a dark but really decisive turn. You see, the first weapons weren't actually invented for war. They were just part of the everyday toolkit for early humans. That sharpened piece of flint you used to skin an animal, or that heavy stone axe for chopping wood, these are tools for living. But in a split second, in a moment of conflict, they become tools for killing. And you can see the evolution so clearly. It starts out simple, right? What's lying around, a rock, a heavy branch. Then you get craftsmanship, shaping that stone into a sharp, effective hand axe. And then, bam, the real breakthrough, combining materials to create something way more lethal, like putting a stone tip on a spear or figuring out the bow and arrow. Each step is a huge leap in deadly efficiency. Okay, so we've got the motive, survival. We've got the means, weapons. Now for the final piece of the puzzle. Organization. This is the moment a chaotic brawl turns into a real battle. Think about it. As human families grew into clans, and those clans grew into tribes, the whole dynamic of a fight changed completely. Suddenly, you're not just fighting for yourself anymore. You're fighting for your people, for your identity. That feeling of loyalty to your group becomes this incredible force, powerful enough to make people risk their lives together as one. And this, right here, is the critical point. Tribal warfare isn't just a bigger fist fight. It's a totally different kind of fight. It means there's planning involved. There are distinct sides. There's a purpose beyond just that immediate angry moment. This is the true birth of war as an organized social thing. So once you have organized groups fighting each other, what's the next logical step? Organized thinking. It stops being about who's the strongest, and it starts being about who's the smartest. These tactics might seem pretty basic to us now, but back then, they were absolutely revolutionary. The idea of using the high ground, setting up an ambush in the woods, attacking from the side instead of head-on, these are the earliest forms of military strategy. It's like the birth of the general, the tactician, right there on some prehistoric battlefield. And this just proves a timeless rule of any conflict. The group with the biggest clubs doesn't always win. It's the best organized, the most cooperative, the group with the cleverest plan that often comes out on top. brains started to matter every bit as much as brawn. So, what have we figured out? Well, it all kind of boils down to this simple, deadly recipe. First, you need a powerful motive, that desperate need for resources, for survival. Then you need the means, the tools that have been turned into weapons. And finally, you need the method, the social organization, the strategy to actually wage a coordinated fight. When those three things finally came together, that's when human warfare was truly born. And that kind of leaves us with one last, pretty unsettling thought. Sure, we've replaced spears with drones, and our tribal loyalties are now national flags, but if you strip away all the layers, the politics, the technology, the ceremonies, are we still fighting for the exact same things? For resources, for security, for the survival of our group?